President Trump's visit to Washington, D.C. to celebrate a reduction in crime is part of a broader and politically charged federal effort to exert control over the city's law enforcement. The president has declared a crime emergency and deployed National Guard troops, along with a surge of federal agents, to the nation's capital. This action has been met with mixed reactions. While the administration points to a recent increase in arrests and claimed success in public safety, local officials and critics argue that the federal intervention is unnecessary and politically motivated. They cite city data showing that violent crime has been on a downward trend for the last 2 years, well before the federal surge. The D.C. mayor has expressed concerns about the federal takeover of local police, calling it a threat to the city's autonomy. The situation highlights a fundamental conflict between federal authority and local governance. President Trump's decision to celebrate crime reduction in Washington, D.C. is multifaceted. One primary reason is to highlight what his administration sees as a successful outcome of its law and order approach. The president has previously declared a crime emergency in the city and deployed federal agents and National Guard troops, framing the intervention as a necessary step to rescue the nation's capital. His visit with police and military personnel is a public relations move to credit these forces and his policies for any recent decrease in crime. However, critics and local officials dispute the White House's narrative. They point out that crime rates in D.C. have been declining for an extended period, suggesting the federal intervention is not the cause of the positive trend. Instead, they argue that the president's actions are politically motivated, tended to demonstrate a strongman approach to governance, and create a model that could be applied to other cities led by his political opponents. The move is also seen as a way to undermine local control and reinforce a narrative of urban decay and chaos, which aligns with the president's broader political messaging. The consequences of President Trump's visit and the federal crackdown on crime in Washington, D.C. are a subject of intense debate and concern. On one hand, the administration claims success, citing a decrease in crime and hundreds of arrests since the federal intervention began. Supporters argue that the presence of federal agents and the National Guard is a necessary step to restore order and public safety. However, many residents, local officials, and critics fear the consequences for civil liberties and home rule. They argue that the federal actions are a politically motivated abuse of power, creating a climate of fear and leading to tense confrontations in the streets. The deployment of masked federal agents and the establishment of checkpoints have raised concerns about a militarized presence in a civilian area. This has also led to a significant drop in foot traffic and business for some local shops, as residents become wary of venturing out. Furthermore, there are worries that the D.C. intervention could serve as a test case for similar actions in other cities, which critics view as a dangerous precedent that could undermine local control across the country. To address crime in Washington, D.C., a multifaceted approach is often proposed, blending law enforcement with community-based solutions. One perspective is that effective crime prevention relies on local knowledge and community trust. This involves empowering DC's local leaders and police to make decisions and allocate resources based on the specific needs of different neighborhoods, rather than a top-down federal mandate. Strategies that focus on targeted policing of hotspots and violent offenders, rather than a broad-based militarized presence, are also seen as more effective. Another viewpoint emphasizes addressing the root causes of crime, such as investing in community violence intervention programs, providing support for returning citizens, and offering resources like housing and employment. These approaches, often championed by local leaders and advocates, aim to break cycles of violence from within the community. The debate over solutions highlights a core conflict between those who prioritize a tough-on-crime federal law enforcement response and those who advocate for community-led, preventative, and holistic strategies to enhance public safety.